Hello guys and welcome to HJW Gaming. In this video I'm going to be looking into something just a little bit different, and I'm going to be looking at why damage mitigation or reduction is so much stronger in Rise to War 2.0 compared to Rise to War Classic. In particular, taking a look at what we think is the damage formula for damage modifier in the 2.0 game. First up, to give full credits where they're due, this information I got from the Gore Commander Discord. Link is down below, so make sure to go check them out. If you have Discord, definitely go and join them. They're a brilliant source of Rise to War 2.0 information, and particular credit goes to the poster Vasey and Fireheart as well, who's also currently testing this. Now this isn't fully guaranteed or ready to be the damage formula, but this is the current theory for what the damage formula is, and it seems to fit with how the Rise to War meta is currently swaying. So first up, to look at the damage formula, what do we think the damage formula is? So we think this is 1 minus the amount of damage reduction you get times 1 plus the damage increase. Now this may look like damage reduction and damage increase therefore balances out for those of you who are kind of somewhat unfamiliar with this kind of working, but the key thing is that damage reduction is factored in first and then the damage increase is applied upon that. So as you can see from some examples, what this means is you need a higher amount of damage increase to increase your damage versus an opponent's damage received reduction, as this is applied second. The reason for this is that the damage reduction is being applied to a base value of 1. However, your damage increase is being applied to that previous value. So, for example, if there's a 10% damage reduction, as in the first example, that reduction is being applied to the base value of 1, which puts you down to a modifier of 0.9, and then that 10% increase is being applied to that already modified number. So you only get a 10% increase on that 0.9 number. Now in this case it doesn't make a massive difference as you end up with a 0.99, so there's only a 1% difference. However, it's when we start getting to significantly larger amounts of damage reduction that we start to really see the impact of this damage modifier. So for example, if you have a 70% damage reduction, which is capable with skills like White Council, if you get a high enough focus, you can get a 70% damage reduction during those first 3 rounds. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. So what that means is you then get that 1 minus 0.7 being the modifier to begin with, so only 0.3. And then if you have a 70% damage increase on top of that, you're only doing 70% additional on top of that 0.3. So that leads you to then have an overall modifier. Despite the damage reduction and damage boost being exactly the same, you actually end up only doing 0.51% damage. And if you take that to the absolute extreme, credit Vesey here for the examples, they are brilliant. 90% damage reduction, which again is possible. That damage reduction of course gets you down to a 0.1 modifier, and if you then apply a 200% damage boost, so more than double damage boost than the amount of damage reduction, you still only get to a 30% modifier because that 200% is being applied on top of only a 0.1 modifier, whereas the 90% is coming off the 1 modifier. Hopefully that makes sense for a lot of you here, and those examples have kind of cleared that up a little bit. But this is why damage reduction is so important in Rise to War 2.0. We're seeing that in the rise of some of the most meta skills in the game currently. Thrain's Guard, a little bit, is quite a strong one, and one of the reasons why Falgin is probably one of the better tanks in the game. But the skill that we're really seeing take control of the game is White Council. Now the reason for this is, with White Council, so the skill itself reads as 4 allied formations receive 18% less damage from the first 5 hits, which can increase to 7, which of course increases to 7 with 10 skill points. And this is modified by the focus stat. So if you can push Gandalf the White's focus really through the roof, you can actually achieve massive amounts of damage reduction comparable to the previous examples. And we're seeing this also double stacked. So you end up with Gandalf the White and Gandalf the Grey. So you get double the instances of this occurring. And what this is doing is massively impacting the amount of damage that the opponents can deal, as no matter how much damage boost they have, as we've previously seen, it's very difficult to get around this amount of damage mitigation. This is why we're seeing an increasing number of double White Council, or at least single White Council armies. I think Gandalf the White in the meta, particularly in non-roleplay, but also I assume in good side roleplay as well, Gandalf the White is included in almost every single army, of course, where people have him available. And that's for exactly this reason, because of the prevalence of that damage reduction and how strong it is on your overall damage received or the opponent's damage applied modifier. To be clear, this is very different to damage avoidance or evasion, for example with Gil-galad's Kingly Kin, which is just avoiding damage altogether and doesn't affect the damage modifier. So what are some ways to kind of counter against this? Now, the only way to really counter against this is, instead of going for damage boost, to instead try and find skills which apply to that first part of the damage modifier. So we want that minus damage reduction. We basically want to adjust that damage reduction number where possible back up, if possible, where possible. Now, there's two skills in particular that can do this. The first of which is the Deceiver from Sauron, which reads as damage received by 3 enemy formations plus 1% modified by focus. And also White Rider of Gandalf the White, which reads as during the first 3 rounds, damage received by 2 enemy formations plus 2.5%. Now, that isn't a damage boost, you'll notice, it's a change to damage received. So that damage reduction number that we're seeing on the left-hand side of the equation is being inflated back up. So if the opponent had negative, say, 70% due to focus from White Council, that plus 10%, or with good focus, 20-30% from Deceiver, can push that back up and therefore increase the amount of damage you do a lot more than having a damage increase. Hopefully this covers a little bit more of where the kind of Rise to War meta is going. As I've said, credit Vasey and the and Fireheart and also the Gore Commander Discord for kind of revealing this information to us. And it does really explain why during testing we're seeing these commanders come up in the meta, particularly Gandalf the White, due to the prevalence, of course, of him having both the White Council for the damage reduction and also White Rider for that damage reduction, if that makes sense. Sauron, again, obviously is very much in the meta due to the Deceiver, and also, interestingly, due to the fact that if you have high speed on Sauron, or high initiative rather, his madness in the pre-battle phase can actually activate sooner and make the opponent's madness switch the White Council skill onto your own troops. But I'll cover that more in another video when I cover how to build Sauron. Hopefully you guys have found this reasonably enlightening. I know I definitely did when I read it, and it really changes the outlook of a lot of my testing and a lot of my army combinations. If you've enjoyed this video, please smash the like button and please consider hitting subscribe, and I'll continue to produce as much Rise to War 2.0 content as you guys need. And just for the 3rd, 4th, 5th time, please sub to Gore's Commander Discord. He'll definitely appreciate it. And anyway, I really hope to see you on the next one.